Faith Forged in Fire, where we dive headfirst into the unique challenges and triumphs that comes with being a firefighter, all while exploring what it means to live out a biblical worldview. Join us as we find hope, perseverance, and faith in the midst of the heat and chaos. Welcome to the podcast.
Very good. Good job there, Rich.
Okay, so we were going to do one about the relationship or religion, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other one was how we do with calls.
Yes.
So you do the relationship, I'll do the calls. Because I'm the
Okay.
firefighter, so we'll do how
Oh
we
yeah,
deal with.
absolutely. That's a great way
So
to
we'll
do
play
it.
rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
If you win, we're talking about religion and relationships.
Okay.
And if I win, we're talking about the calls.
This is a great way to do it.
All right.
Okay?
Yep.
Oh
Hey!
man.
Welcome to the podcast.
Oh man. I didn't even get a shot on that one.
No, so today's topic, how do we deal with calls?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going right into it.
Jumping right into
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
Hello.
Hello. There's
Are you
a
ready?
curve.
Whoa.
Yeah.
it. Hey, this is why you should watch on YouTube instead of listen, because we just played rock, paper, scissors to figure out what we're talking about today.
I'm 0 for 1. I didn't even get a shot at that one.
No,
it was nothing.
I'm a professional.
Okay, full disclosure, two things. Number one, we did actually think about what we're going to talk about,
Yeah, we did.
but we record 2 shows at a time, and we hadn't actually figured out which one was going to be which. So
Right.
that's, I guess, how we determined it.
Yep. We had a little delay because the roof, I think, is leaking a little bit, maybe.
Steve
The
hit
notes
table,
The notes got wet.
Yeah, like we had like a gallon of water spilled on the table today. So,
trying to figure out where it's coming from, and then somebody admits, "Oh yeah, I did bump the table."
Oh,
Oh, man.
That darn squirrel.
All right. Well, hey guys, welcome to the podcast. We're glad that you're here. It's good to be back. For us, we get a little break because we try to record 2 at a time, and we try to do them like the first couple weeks. So we're actually recording ahead so that, by next week we'll have all of July done. But what that does, I think, for everybody, we kind of get refreshed. It's not a grind for us. So man, it's been a while, so
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
Speaking
A
of grinding,
yeah.
we should give a shout out to
Yes, our
Jake.
incredible sponsor.
Yes, Red Flannel Coffee Co.
Hey, by the way, Steve, you ordered some coffee
Oh.
from him.
Yes.
I was going to say, Jake, you're not just getting a brand of coffee. You're just not getting a nice, cool bag, black bag.
I'll do
You're
my
not getting,
airline stewardess.
yeah,
thing.
you're not getting just a good savory flavor. You're getting a guy that just cares. And, and Jake was so kind. I ordered my Red Flannel Coffee Company because my wife now is hooked, and now I have to have a coffee budget in my house. So my folks in Arizona got some coffee because my Father's Day, you got it. They have a code for Father's Day, right?
You got to use it.
Got to use it, and we got some more. So I have so much. I have loads of coffee in my house, and my wife won't drink anything else. Now she's got cups. She got cups too.
Do they leak?
Yeah. No, these ones. No,
Oh, she doesn't bump the table.
Okay.
no.
Sippy
It's-
cup.
So anyway,
So anyway, I got my receipt and I open up this nice receipt, and on the top it says, "Thank you for your support, Jake." And then he says, "Oh, below that, for Steve," he says, "To open, remove pull tab on front of bag to expose opening to close." He goes, resealable zipper, pinch resealable zipper. I
Yeah.
can use. I mean, but that's a real hard. That's a guy that really cares.
I think you would need step-by-step directions.
I
But if
would.
you remember, Steve's revealed to us that the first bag he got, he opened like a T-Rex.
Yeah, I did. It was like a grizzly bear that I was like trying to get into a cooler of food.
This stuff isn't made by SpaceX. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to open it up.
Oh, man.
I stared at it for a while. I had no idea what to do. I was lost. I just
That's
figured
right.
I'd do
Jake's got your back.
what a caveman would do. I have nothing
Right.
to open it with. I'll just go nuts, teeth, the whole 9 yards, and you get it open. But unfortunately, I don't read directions. My wife gets on me all the time by not reading directions. I pay the price. So Jake, thank you so much for your love and concern for me.
Yeah.
And you know what? My wife thanks you as well, because now we can reseal our coffee for freshness moving forward because of
Instead
your
of
beautiful.
have to drink the whole bag in a day.
Because of
I bet Steve sold a lot of stuff that day.
That I did. So, that's good stuff. Good stuff.
So anyways, now that you've been reminded of our great sponsor, I just want to ask you guys, go support him. He has been a great encouragement and help to us. You guys have heard his story if you're listening. If not, if you're new, go back and listen. Jake was on a couple of episodes and shared a lot of different things that you're going to want to listen to. But if you're new, if you've never ordered coffee, you can use the code PJ20. There's a code down in the description, and at checkout, you can get 20% off all of your coffee, not your mugs, but all of your coffee. And because there's already a deal with the mugs, you'll find that on there if you want one of their cool mugs. And I'll say this too, we haven't really said this, but they have a great Facebook page and an Instagram page just like we do.
Yes.
So if you're not following either of those, go do that. Follow Faith Forged in Fire. And often we'll share stuff on there too, because we want to support them. But like Father's Day, they had a code. He's always running sales. So if you say, well, that 20% off is only my first purchase. Yep. But if you follow him, keep up with what's going on, you'll find more deals along the way. So,
yeah. And because of our recording schedule, sometimes codes come up that we're not able to talk about just because when these things air. So
the code's gone. You want to get the newest code, get there.
So, but I see Jake is really, really putting some codes on there. Always wanting to get some coffee out there. And I'm telling you, it's a great bag of coffee. Yeah. It's good stuff. And like I said, you're helping out a great cause. I see you support a good Christian business, but you're also putting AEDs in public buildings and we're saving lives.
Absolutely.
And we're saving lives. And so, it's
firefighters can save lives, and then they can go drink coffee and still save lives while drinking coffee.
Yes. And
how much better does that get?
And, these nice ceramic cups, when they don't leak, they're wonderful. We were joking,
Just
Jake.
don't let Steve around your table.
They only leak out the top. Unless Steve's around.
Oh, I'm like a bull in the china shop sometimes. So you gotta just don't drink coffee around me, please. And
hey, let's jump into this.
Yes.
Let's jump right into this. We want to talk about really kind of just talk through how do we deal with calls. And I think is that not when we talk about first responders, whether you're police, EMS, even, military, firefighters, that's where this whole struggle comes from is because the things that we see, the things that we process begin to pile up. I heard a quote a long time ago. It stuck with me. It's funny how quotes do that. And it's never left me. And it just simply said you can't unsee what these eyes have seen. Yeah. And we never know. We've had many conversations on this podcast about you really don't know what's going to bring those things back to your mind. So how do we deal with that? And the beauty is we as Christians can deal with that differently. Yes. And that's why we want to have this conversation. But what I want to preface this with before I kind of turn it over to Steve, who's going to kind of, I think, lead with just kind of how, because what we like to do is in a situation like this where Steve is not a firefighter, yes. He lives in the fire service, but he, in that world, but he's not a firefighter. We like to turn that over to him and let him kind of pick our brains, even though Steve can add to the conversation himself. But what I want to say is, what we're trying to do today is have a broad conversation. We might touch on some specifics, but most of these specifics we can do a whole show about, and we do intend to come back later on and dive into these things. So I will say right away before we even get started, we don't want details from you, but if there's a certain type of call, we all understand that there's certain types of calls that are harder for different people for different reasons. If there's a certain type of call that you struggle with and you want to know how we might deal with that, especially through a biblical lens, a spiritual lens, let us know, whether it's in the comments of this video, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Instagram. If you go to Instagram or Facebook, you can private message us if you don't want that out there. And like I said, we're not asking for details, but you understand as a first responder, you can give, hey, here's a type of a call that I struggle with. And if so, let us know and we can do our best to talk through that and try to help with that.
Sure. We want the viewer to know that, first off, just to piggyback up what you're saying is we want you to know that everything we talk about here that comes into the studio is confidential. We're not here. We want to make sure don't feel that we're going to talk about you specifically or anything.
Right.
We want you to reach out, because what's important in this podcast is that you are reaching out to us and finding the resources for help that you need and to deal with what you're dealing with. And so everything is done confidentially. We don't talk about it. We'll never talk about it on air. These are things
or with anybody else.
And with anybody else, we will
often not even with each other.
Yeah,
right.
We don't even do that.
If you get somebody or I get somebody, we will just say, hey, here's a situation, and we don't even share who it is.
So this is in complete confidentiality with us. So please reach out. What's important is that you reach out, that you get the help that you need, and we pray with you that we get the Lord involved in all of this, and we do this together. So, and then also I wanted to say too, as you were talking, really what is important for, the viewer to understand is it's very easy to see, and we'll be specific with the fire guys, but you see them on a call and you see all the glamour and all the, you watch the movies, Backdraft, and all the glamour of it, but you don't know what really goes on deep down. No, I mean,
this is a non-fire guy talking about the glamour.
I'm just saying, but I'm saying the people outside don't understand that what you guys, when it gets down to the grind, what really is going on. Yeah. It's not, it's sometimes.
Not to mention that glamorous side is almost never.
Yeah.
More often I'm going, they didn't tell me this when I signed up.
Yeah.
Well, but sometimes that's a perception that people have.
Right.
Like, oh, the fire
We need
guys.
to talk about that sometime.
Perception?
Let's mark that down in our list. You guys let us
Put that
know.
on your notes.
It's too wet. My cup leaked out the top all over everything.
We need to get a heater and just put it on.
No,
we do not need a heater in here.
It's already 100 in here.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that'd be a great episode for us to do shortly. Some of the misconceptions of the fire service. So anyway, keep going.
So the misconception is that, it's all glamour. It's all right. Everything's wonderful. And these guys, they just sit around and, hang around the fire table all day and watch TV and sit in recliners, and they don't
save a life once in a while.
Yeah. Every once in a while they go on a call and get a cat out of a tree kind of thing. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to it.
That's a misconception.
Misconception as well. So
I've got a story about getting a cat out of a tree. I've done that.
Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah. I've actually gotten a cat out of a tree. Highly disappointed that it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to.
Did the cat attack you? Or?
No, that's a whole nother story. We'll save that for a different podcast.
Episode.
I'll add that to the notes.
Yes.
So, but I think it's, I'd like to start off with really, dealing with the calls. And first off, when the tone goes off, and I'll talk to either one of you guys or ask either one of you guys, is that a situation where do you preset your mentality when you go on a call of, like if the tone goes off, are you thinking like, I have to get myself in game mode in case this isn't good? Like I'm going to be prepared for something that's serious. Is it just depending on the call that comes in? Like if it's an extrication or if it's just a fire alarm, are you thinking ahead of time? Like, I'm not sure what I'm going to roll up on here. So what would be like your mind frame as you're running to the call? And let's just say this. Let's say that it's something that's going to be, maybe you have a child or something like that where that it could potentially not be good. Are you thinking in your mind, are you preparing yourself mentally to deal with something ahead of time? Or is it just you don't even think about it till you actually show up on the scene and deal with it there?
Something that I can touch on in there now. Back in the day, I would have just been going and thinking, okay, we got a child. What's my vital signs going to be? What are, you start thinking how to take care of a child compared to somebody that tips her coffee cup over all the time. But now quite often, and PJ knows that I ran a call a year and a half ago or something where an infant died. And I find myself now in those cases, I pretty much pray the whole way there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's
to prepare for it, I I can't say that I sit down and try to mentally get myself hyped up for the call. I already know if a kid's involved, it's going to be bad. It's just going to be normally.
Yeah. But I mean, not to get hyped up, but just be prepared that I may see something today that's going to affect me. Mm-hmm. Do you like prepare ahead of the call? Like as you're going to the call, are you like, you probably like, Lord, just help me to get through this call. I mean, or you know, like mentally you're just ready to go. Cause I'm sure for everybody it's different. Some guys are just like focused on, let's just get to the call. Then I'm even thinking about it. You know, maybe some other people, you know, depending on the individual, but, and then obviously when you're at the call and if it's something that's a harder call to deal with, I would assume that what takes over is just, I got to save the life here. I got to do what I have to do, what I'm taught to do. And then once the call is over is when you need to process.
Right.
That's when it hits you normally.
Yeah.
Because training normally takes over. You're on the way. You've got dispatch information. In that case, I'm saying a quick prayer, you know, on the way, you know, God, this is this is between you. Mm-hmm. Use me. You've called me to this. Use me as you wish. You know, the outcome is in your hands. And then you're right into what are my vitals? You know, okay, am I going to be doing compressions on the baby? You're running through, you know, the 2 thumbs, hold the baby, you know, do those kind of things. And it's pretty much for me, and I can't say it for everybody, that training and experience takes over at that point.
Do you know, it's just something that popped in my head. If you're on a rough call, but it comes out okay, do you still think about the process when it wasn't good, even though the end result was good? Let's just say a child was coded, for example, and the heart stopped, and you're working on a child as the heart is stopped, but we will resuscitate them. And yes, there was a great ending, but does the call still affect you because you got a chance? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It still affects you. And I guess for me, if it comes out okay, you're always thinking of, you know, and I'm sure PJ, he loves extrication, and you get a car that works, you know, and extrication goes good. But for me, I'm always like processing it afterwards, going like, okay, what could have been better? What could have we done different? Because every call is a learning experience.
Okay. Well, and I think I would agree with everything that you've said, Rich. What I want to do is kind of answer your question a different way, because something like a child, that's something that in dispatch you receive, and you at least have some clue, right? As soon as they give you the age, you have some clue of what you might be walking into. Often when it's an accident, they don't tell you that, and you don't know. I mean, we all know, and it's not dispatch's fault. Right. They get a bad rap because we get frustrated. Well, they didn't tell us, or they toned it out as this big thing, and it was little. They literally have the information given to them by the caller. So we can't blame them. So what happens is, you're processing this, and then you roll up on what you maybe even you think is going to be a little thing, and you realize there's like, it's a terrible, you know, like, oh, this isn't good. I mean, there are very few times that they will say this is a possible K, or, you know, meaning that there's a good possibility somebody's already gone. So you roll up, and then your mind has to start processing like, oh, this is not good. Like this is for real. We've got to go. Right. And you don't even have time to start worrying about all that other stuff.
Now, like for me, my May 17 call, when we went to that, dispatch information was a child was struck by a lawnmower. And we're all thinking, okay, out playing in the yard, dad ran her foot over. So we get there thinking, okay, we're going to splint, we're going to do this. When we got there, I mean, once we topped the hill, you instantly knew that this is not the call that you thought you were going to. You didn't have time to think. You had to go to go mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you didn't have time to think about it. It was 15 seconds. You topped the hill, and you knew that something was wrong just by the scene, and I won't get into that. But
sure.
Yeah, and I think too, then it's the after, right? Because you're in go mode. And then afterwards, you have to think about it. And then afterwards is not just for me, and this is speaking personally, but for me, it's not just processing what's happening, but we're often on scene for a little while, especially if it's an accident. If it's a bad accident, we're on scene for a while after we've done our job, because we're helping with traffic and stuff while the police do their investigation. So it's not unusual for family to show up. And that makes it worse, way worse. And it's not unusual, not to be morbid, but the reality is if there's an accident and somebody doesn't make it and they're still in the car, they stay there until the police are done, and then we remove them from the car. So there's just, each call is so different because there's different time frames to process this. Sometimes you show up on scene, it's a medical call, and it's a load and go, and they tell you you're driving the ambulance, and like it's just go, 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 and it's not until later that you have an opportunity to process it. So it's just very different. Each call is very different. To answer that question, I think is.
Now to make it even a little more dynamic, PJ and I and two other people go to the same call, and we're all going to process it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it so important to, they all talk about the brotherhood, and finally mental health is starting to get into the fire service finally. So it's important that if somebody's having a rough time, open up about it. Because it used to be, what was the old saying, suck it up, buttercup?
Right.
And a lot of times now people are realizing that that's not I'm sure some of the big cities are still that way. But
let me say this, because as you're talking about this, I'm just thinking this through. This is for our listeners who are not first responders, who do not understand this, because we get this gripe a lot. Somebody might drive past a scene where it's pretty obvious somebody has just died, and they see the firefighters standing around and they're smiling, they're laughing, and they get upset about that. You got to understand that that's part of how we deal with it. And we're not laughing about the situation by any means, but, and it seems cold to disconnect yourself from the situation, but you see it so much. You just have to. God didn't design our minds and our bodies to be able to see and handle that kind of destruction that much.
Yeah.
So part of it is just disconnecting from that, because you can't just sit there and think about it. You have to move on. And so we might be talking about life, we might be picking on another guy, whatever, and it just helps us process through that better. That always frustrates me. Now, I get too, there's been times that I've been on scenes where maybe the paramedics are goofing around during CPR. That bothers me. That bothers me a lot. But when it's all done and you've removed yourself, I mean, even I want to be away from the house, the family when we're doing that. But you just have to process. That's part of the process.
So when the call is over, and I completely understand everything you guys are talking about, because there's things that I'm also aware of, or I've been speaking, to guys about, and they've, relayed to me as well. So what is the point, or let me ask this, when the call is over, and I would, what is the process after the call? And this is really meant for the non-fire people that are listening right now. What is the process after to help deal with the call? I know, Rich, you've talked about personally about the shoes in the closet, but I mean, just in general, as the chief of the department, what is the process after everybody's been on the call? It's been a really, really tough one. What do you do to get the troops together to deal with them?
Can I say something before Rich answers?
Yeah.
Because while you're saying this, I'm thinking about something, especially for our non-firefighter or non-first responder. There's a dynamic there that's different. A full-time fire department will answer this call. They'll come back as the brotherhood. They'll stay together for the rest of their shift.
Yeah.
And I think there's some value there in that. And I want to hear what Rich says here, right. But our listeners need to understand they'll finish out their 24 or 48 or whatever it is. I might have left. Maybe I was mowing the lawn, right? And I leave and I run this call and I'm with my brothers and sisters. We've experienced this thing together. We come back, and what do I have to do? I have to go back to my home and finish mowing lawn like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And that adds to the, wait a minute, I'm mowing lawn, or maybe a little kid didn't make it and I was watching a movie with my kids, and now I'm sitting there finishing this movie with my kids like nothing ever happened. Sometimes that makes it having to and I'm not with the people who experience that. So just that's just so when you ask that question, there's different dynamics.
Sure.
Rich is going to answer this maybe a little differently because of being a paid on call chief. So Rich.
For me, and we haven't been good at it lately, a lot of times they do an after action review. And you can kind of talk about it. Most of the time in the past, what I have found is if the three of us go on a call and one of us are having a hard time, a lot of times the history of being salty and the suck it up buttercup thing takes over, and you don't want to sit here and go like, guys, hey, we need to talk. I'm having a rough time. Because your fear is if I'm having a hard time, do you guys really want to go into a fire with me? That wimp, he couldn't even handle that. So, is he man enough to handle doing that kind of job? And that used to be a pretty big, thing. You didn't want to admit being weak or needing help or anything like that, because that in ways came back. Now that's getting a lot better in the fire service. I mean, you get on and look for other podcasts. There's all kinds of them now about mental health in the fire service. It is something that we're going to get better at. I've got a diverse group of people. I've been on it for 20 some years. PJ's been on it for probably over 15. I've got other people that have been on 10, and I've got people that have just been hired. Yeah. And that, with those 18 people I think I'm up to now, it's so diverse that I might go run a call with PJ and one of the new people, and I'll go like, that call wasn't nothing. PJ and I went on, we went on one. It was a 75-year-old male unresponsive. We ended up doing CPR. It's like, okay, we did CPR. We did everything right. That might been the first time that dude with us has ever seen anything like that, and it might be a huge trauma for him. Right. So we need to get better at coming back to the station and talking. And I think most of my people know, and I hope they know, that even if we don't talk about it after the call, if they're struggling, hours later, whatever, my office is always open. Well, they can always come in the office, scream, holler, throw. Yeah. If they don't want me in the office, I'll leave. Do whatever you want in the office. That's our safe room, for lack of better words. Come and talk. And I'm not going to judge you. I've been there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's the value in some departments are better at it than others, but the value of building camaraderie, building a good brotherhood and a bond, because I just automatically know if I'm on a call with Rich and there's a kid involved, I know he's not going to be all right. He's more all right than he used to be, but I know I need to check on him. Yeah. The one that he talked about running a year or so ago, he texted me, I think it was on the way. Or maybe that was a different one.
It might have been on the way out the door.
There was one on the way out the door, and he said, hey, little kid doesn't sound good, kind of thing. And I just immediately knew to start praying for him. I had a couple of people from down there text me through the day and say, hey, make sure you check on Rich. Done, already did, but he had other people who understood that were looking out for him. And so the more that you process that stuff together, and that's even the value of the first time you go to somebody and say, hey, I had a hard time with that call. Now, the next time you have a similar call, now they're going to know, okay, how can I help them through this before they've even had to ask for help?
But that's also, I think, part of the value of how things are going now is that it's okay for me to text you.
Right.
And I don't even remember what I said. Pray for me or something. It was
I don't even think,
simple.
I don't even know if you said pray for me. I just knew,
So, back in the day, it was like, I'm not even going to text anybody and let them know that this might bother me. And now it's for me anyways. Right. Now it might be different north of here, south of here, wherever. It may still be that way in some places, but now at least the atmosphere, I hope at my station for everybody is more open to that.
Yeah, as I think as the old school regime of guys start to retire off, I think you're starting to see where the culture change is happening. It's still hanging on in certain places where you have guys that have been, 40 years on, 50 years on, that still have that little bit of that old school mentality. But I think in general, you'll find that it's becoming more open to have legit conversation. Because, one of the things that for me that's very interesting, as I have talks and as I've been fortunate to have ministry in the fire service and talk to guys, there's always a common theme with the guys and retired guys. And they all tell me the same exact thing. They said, Steve, you never forget the bad calls.
Mm-hmm.
They never go away. They're always there. And that's part of, I think, that not dealing with it properly is it just lingers with you for the rest of your life.
Remember when we had Jake on and these guys started talking about a call and you were blown away at their memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when they started talking, I was immediately like, I was there. I knew what they were because I think it's the adrenaline. It's every part of that and it burns it in your brain and there's no forgetting it.
And I think it's hard for maybe some people that aren't in this service to understand it. So I came up with a way to maybe make it a little. The other day on board, deer season's coming. The deer camera's shooting me 50 pictures a day. I've got some really nice deer. I'm getting excited. I'm going through a pile of DVDs. Now, those are what movies used to come on if you were too young. Okay. You put them in or a VHS. And it's like that. I'll go through and go like, man, it's been a long time since I've watched this DVD. Now I've pulled it out of the closet. I can put it in the DVD player, push it, and start watching, and I'll remember, oh, yeah, Mark Drury shot this big buck. Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's going to come around the corner. Now, if you would ask me, hey, you ever see this? Go, yep. And I wouldn't remember anything about it, but once you start talking about it, all that stuff comes back. And like PJ's mentioned before, when we were talking about the community that you live in, there's times I'll be driving down the road and go like, yeah, I did CPR in that house. Oh, yep, that's where the girl broke her leg falling off a bicycle.
Right.
So if you want to start digging into
and
history,
you haven't thought about it in forever. You didn't even necessarily maybe know where you're at. It's not like you're going, oh no, I'm coming up to that house. Right. Something just triggers. Yeah.
Another thought that came up too is and I say more as a chief, but I guess it would be for anybody. At what point do you step in for somebody else that's struggling that is not talking about it? For example, you see one of your members that you could tell something's not right. And you're assuming, now again, I see it's an assumption, but let's just say it's a week or two after a bad call and you're starting to see a change and you're probably realizing it's probably from something that they've experienced and they're dealing with it mentally. What do you and talking about this, where things are at now versus the old school way of doing things, how do you handle that as a chief with your member and what do you do?
Well, I guess I'm blessed to tell you I don't know the answer to that because I've yet to have that problem happen.
Okay.
So what I would want to do is go like, hey, Steve, you got a minute? Hey, how you been doing? And just try to talk to you and get a feel for what's going on. Now, if it got to the point where I realized that you were, going to be a safety issue, like you couldn't do your job on a medical call or, you're a danger for other people, then I'd probably going to be forced to take some other action, whether that's to make you take a week off, 2 weeks off. We've got insurance companies that you can get therapy through. I had one guy that wanted to go through the therapy and he went through that. So there's avenues, but I've been lucky enough to not have to do that. But I normally try to talk to people enough to kind of get an idea what's going on. Okay. And, there's a rumor mill and everything. So like in that case, when the infant died, PJ had text messages coming from other people saying, hey, they heard the call on the scanner. They put 2 and 2 together. And I guarantee you, if Joyce heard the call on her radio, that she would have texted and said, hey, keep an eye on Rich.
She's not even affiliated anymore. She's just a good friend now.
But she was the one that I was working with on the May 17 call. So she knows. Just like if she was still in the fire service and I heard her station respond to that and I knew she was going to that, I'd be on it.
Go ahead.
No, and if I didn't have like a direct message to her, didn't want to bother her, and I knew that PJ was at her station or was really good friends with her, I'd be getting a hold of PJ and say, hey, let's keep an eye on Joyce. And I'd be watching that kind of stuff.
The other side of that is with this now being something that people talk about and it's okay, it's not a shame, is I'm starting to see, and I know Rich would have this thought is, especially if, sometimes you get on a call and every once in a while, you have more people than you need. But even if you don't, there's times where you're like, you know what, you can sit, you're better just sit outside or wait at the station or whatever. And that's hard because you're still the person's still processing, but sometimes somebody, incident commander, somebody needs to, even if they know, just know, I think they're kind of struggling. Like, hey, it's probably better. And generally that person is not going to fight that either, because they know they're struggling and they're just like, yeah, I don't even really want to be a part of that.
Probably the blanket statement you're going to get back from somebody who's like, no, I'm all right. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
you go, no, it's all right.
Yeah, it's good, man. We got enough help in there. So what I would find myself doing, I can't speak for other people. I would find reasons that I don't need Steve to go back in there.
Right.
Because that's taken that off from you.
Right.
Now you don't have to tell the other people,
right.
Well, why didn't you come back in here, Steve? Well, Chief had another assignment for me, so I couldn't go back in. I had to be out here. That takes that pressure off from you if there is pressure. Yeah. And if somebody put the pressure on you, then we'd be talking to those people because that's not cool.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be at that scene or in that scenario and there's putting pressure on you, then that's a coaching moment. We call it.
Absolutely.
Say, hey, there's a reason behind this, and on scene is not the time to discuss it.
Right.
But here's what's going on. Come on.
So we've talked about a lot of stuff here, and it is time for us to wrap this thing up. As you can tell, we could talk forever.
Right.
I want to answer this question kind of one blanket way, because this is the Faith Forged in Fire podcast, and we have not touched on this, and I have kind of intentionally not touched on this. We've talked about the practical ways that we deal with this, but as we go through this, as this podcast lives on, and then we start to talk about more of the specifics, what I want to then dive into is theology. And I know some of you that are listening are like, whoa, wait a minute. But here's the thing. I cannot deal with this aside from my faith and my understanding of God. Rich can deal with the things now differently. When I text him now and he says, hey, pray for me, this is going to be tough, and then I get a hold of him, he's like, you know what? I've been praying and I'm doing all right. He means he's doing all right, and it's not on his own. It's because of what we understand to be true and God's control of that. And I look at what we do in the first responder world, in the fire service, and I just cannot fathom doing this without having the hope of God and the truths that I use to process these things. It doesn't mean that I don't come home and have to deal with it. But part of the reason that I'm able to be okay is because, it takes me some time, but I can process it through scripture, through theology, understanding God's plan, and I'm able to work through it. And so that's what we want to do as we get into later on other episodes, because there's a side of this, the biggest side of this, that all the things we're talking about right now are literally Band-Aids. Right?
True. That's
right.
Very true.
And it's God that's going to help you through that helps us through that, and our understanding of him. There's a saying that I say all the time in our church: our theology determines our attitude. In other words, if you don't know what theology is what we know and believe about God. So what we know and believe about God determines our attitude. If we don't know much or believe much about God, we're going to struggle a whole lot more with this. The more we understand about God, the better our attitude is going to be about anything we're facing in life, because we have an understanding of it through God's eyes. So our theology determines our attitude. And then what does our attitude do? Our attitude determines how we act and react to things. So it applies very much to how do we deal with calls. And so we're going to dig much deeper into that over time, right? Yeah. Not, don't think we're coming back next week and doing this. We've got a lot of things to talk about, and we really try to have some heavier topics and some lighter topics and that kind of thing.
Break it up a little bit. Yeah, we wanted the viewers to know, and especially for the viewers that are public safety related, is that this is kind of like the first in a series
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to open a can, right?
Yeah, we're
open it
starting
up
it
a little
out.
bit, right?
But we'll dig a little deeper.
A can of worms.
Yeah, careful with him with an open can.
Yeah, it's gonna get spilled all over in a hurry.
Just get my butt out of the way, and we'll be okay. But no, this will be the first of many episodes where we'll talk more specifically about certain calls and how you do with specific calls versus the generalized like we spoke about today.
Right. So, and we keep saying this: if you have a call, a type of call that you struggle with, and say, how should I process this? Especially maybe thinking through scripture, we would love to walk through that with you. If you are a non-firefighter and this has stirred some questions, same thing. We love getting questions. I said to somebody the other day, well, I said it to Jake. We can call Jake out because he's our lovely sponsor, right?
Well, we're never going to get air conditioning now.
He gave us some great ideas, and I said, and kind of apologize. I said, don't apologize. If the three of us never have to come up with another podcast idea ever, we'll be happy.
Oh yeah,
because then we know we're talking about things you guys want to hear. So please give us ideas, ask us questions, say, hey, what about this for a topic? You said something and it made me think. And again, even if you're not fire service and you go, you know what, I don't have a clue what this is. We love explaining to the civilians, can we call it that way? General public, what we do and why we do it. Because if we can give you a better appreciation, we want to do that.
You know, it's something just struck mine really quick while you said that. Is it one of the complaints I hear from kids, and maybe kids that grew up that kind of started to walk away a little bit, is that I never got my questions answered.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do on this show is we don't there's no bad questions here. There's no dumb questions here. You have questions. We want to be able to provide the answers through scripture, through the Lord.
And we're going to do our best. We might have to say, I don't know.
Yeah. But
yeah, we're not professionals.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I'm saying is through the Holy Spirit and through scripture, we will answer this, but we don't want to shy away and say, next question, please.
Yeah.
Because it's important. If you're asking a question, it's important to you.
Right.
So just know that.
And it's probably important to other people who just aren't brave enough to ask the question.
Exactly. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Because there's how many trainings I've been in and nobody wants to ask the stupid question.
And then somebody asks and everybody's like, I'm glad you asked.
Glad PJ asked. I wasn't going to ask why fire trucks are red. That's what Siri's for.
So, but make sure to ask that though. We want to answer that for you and make sure that you feel equipped.
Yeah.
With that. So yeah, don't be afraid.
Well, hey, we got to get out of here, but I want to encourage you, if you're brand new, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, if you're listening on the podcast, thank you. If you haven't yet, make sure you follow us on Facebook, make sure you follow us on Instagram, wherever you are. And just know that this airs every Friday. It comes out new on Friday mornings at 6:30 as the newest episode. And it's pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If for whatever crazy reason you want to look at our faces, you can see us on YouTube. And we always ask this, if this has been a blessing, we've gotten some really great messages from people that have been enjoying this podcast. So do us a favor and share it, because that's really how this is going to get out for people. Share it and say, hey guys, check out this podcast. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening and just being patient as we kind of just sit here and have a conversation. I mean, we're just it's, we've said it before. We kind of want it to be a matter of, hey, it's some guys sitting around the dinner table at the firehouse having a conversation.
What I like to say is this is the broken table right here, and come take a seat with us at the broken table. Three broken guys that are just living life and just loving the Lord, and we search Him out in every aspect of our lives, and He's everything that we need. And so yeah, please come join us here at the table.
Yeah, and if we can help you be one of those men or women, we want to do that. Thanks, guys and girls, ladies, for watching and listening. We will see you, or we will talk to you if you're not watching. You hear us. Lord willing, next week. We're out. We'll see you in the next episode.